Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today as you filter in here. I am Britt Cloudsdale. I am the Family Support Program Manager for AdoptUSKids and wanted to welcome you all to our webinar today that is on preparing and supporting parent group leaders using the AdoptUSKids Parent Group Leadership Curriculum. We are so excited to introduce this brand new free resource for y'all to use for training your support group leaders. And we're going to go into depth here about some various aspects of the curriculum. And we hope that we can answer any questions that you might have about using the curriculum and basically just, introduce it to y'all and hope that it is of use to y'all. So again, my name is Britt. I am joined by the illustrious and incomparable Kim Stevens, who is also on the AdoptUSKids Family Support Team. And Kim was the primary author of this curriculum. And Kim also has lived experience as a foster and adoptive parent and of course, as a support group leader herself. So she is, perfectly positioned to do some awesome support and training for these parent group leaders. And so we're excited to have her today. Before we get started, just wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping items here. This webinar is being recorded and it is going to be posted publicly on our AdoptUSKids professionals page. And everybody who has registered for this webinar will be receiving a copy of the webinar slides, as well as the recording link. So don't worry about scribbling everything down really quick or anything like that. You're going to get a copy of all of the slides and of course, the curriculum itself. I did want to mention before we move forward that everybody who registered should have gotten an email from me with a link to the curriculum. So you can have it up and follow along if you would like to. You certainly don't have to, but everybody can access that whenever they would like, basically. You can also, we encourage you to engage with us and submit your questions via the Q&A tab that is in your control panel. And we also encourage you to use the chat function and chat with us and chat with your peers. I do want to advise you, though, that if you are using the chat box, you do want to make sure that that is toggled to go to just to everyone, if you'd like everybody to be included in that, or just a panelist, depending on who you're asking the question of. So just definitely encourage you to engage with us. We'd love to see your questions. We also are going to be sending out a survey via email. You'll get an email from AdoptUSKids evaluation, and we really hope you'll take the 5 minutes or so to give us some feedback on how you think this webinar went. We really value all of the feedback we receive from all of the participants in all of the events that we do, and we use your feedback to make these better. So we hope you'll take a couple of minutes to give us some feedback. Go ahead, Kim. Thank you. So a little bit about AdoptUSKids for those of you who are not familiar. AdoptUSKids is a federal project of the U.S. Children's Bureau, and we have a two-pronged mission. The first part of that mission is to raise public awareness about the need for foster and adoptive families for children in the public child welfare system. And the second part of that mission is to assist U.S. states, territories, and tribes in the recruitment, engagement, development, and support of foster and adoptive families. So this part of this work and the curriculum itself falls into the second part of that mission, where we are really serving parent group leaders in the very important job that they have as they provide such important support to families in all over the country. You may be most familiar with AdoptUSKids photo listing, where we have many children available for adoption in the U.S. foster system, as well as parents who are seeking to adopt children from the foster care system. We also have a capacity building and engagement team, and we also have a family support team that Kim and I are a part of. And we have a really awesome program called the Minority Professional Leadership Development Program. And that is where minority leaders become transformational leaders in the field of adoption. It's a really awesome program that we have at AdoptUSKids. And we also have a foster and adoption response system where interested families can contact us and get pointed in the right direction, get important information to help them make those first couple of steps toward learning about fostering and adopting. So with that, let's get into the bulk of this webinar here. So I'm going to just share our goals with you today before I hand it over to Kim. The main goal here is we want to share the core components of the curriculum with you today. That's the main thing that we want to do. We're going to go over, not in detail, of course, because the curriculum itself is actually 12 hours of training. So we're just giving you a kind of a taste. We're giving you a little bit of a taste. And we're going to showcase some activities and some samples from the curriculum of kind of what you can expect from it and kind of what you would see if you were to delve further into it. We also want to offer some implementation suggestions to you, and we can also discuss how AdoptUSKids could potentially help you with that, help support you in implementation if you are wanting to use it at your agency. And then, of course, we want to answer your questions and help get you pointed in the right direction as you try to better prepare or support parent group leaders at your agency. So with that, we would love to know who's in the room. So I'm going to launch a poll here. If you would please select which role best describes you. I know that we didn't hit all of them, right? There's only 5 responses here, but if you would select what best describes you. Are you a current or prospective support group leader, your frontline staff who supports resource parents, a supervisor of those frontline staff, a program manager, or a director at your agency? And all are welcome, of course, but this kind of helps us to kind of learn, who's in the room so that we can, kind of tailor what we're saying to our audience here. Okay, it looks like about 70%, a little over 70% of folks have responded. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to get a little bit more time here. Great. Okay, well, I'm going to end that and I'm going to share it. So it looks like we run the gamut. I think we have a lot of current or prospective support group leaders. So that's fantastic. You may be able to take a lot from this curriculum and maybe advocate for its use at the agencies that you're at or with your independent organizations that you're at. And also frontline staff are here. That's fantastic. Supervisors. Looks like we have quite a bit from everybody that looks like mostly current or prospective support group leaders. So that's fantastic. So with that, I'm gonna stop talking and I'm gonna hand it over to Kim, and because she's gonna walk you through this curriculum. So go ahead, Kim.
Hello, everyone. Super excited to be at this point in this project. It's been a work of the heart, and also it's been kind of a heavy lift at times, trying to make sure that we covered everything, and at the same time didn't make it too big a lift for agencies and for associations to do. So first, we want to talk a little bit about the value of peer-led support groups, particularly for those of you that are agency staff and that are wondering, is it better to have only staff run these groups? Is it better to have co-leaders that include a parent or a caregiver with lived experience? So some of the things that we have seen over the years as we've done parent group leader and just support group leader development in particular, is that the first thing is that when we do have peers, parents who have got experience doing the leadership, we find that really builds a great community where the parents, the caregivers who come to the groups can find validation, they can find some normalization of their experiences, they can find out that they are not alone. We always hear back from parents that they really appreciate hearing from people that have been there and done that and learned from mistakes, because I'll tell you, in my opinion, the best way to learn is to learn from the mistakes that either I've made or from other people have made. If you get it right the first time, you may not know why or how, but if you make a mistake or if someone else does and we learn about that, we can be sure we're on the right path. We also know that we can find when we do have a peer-led group, it often opens up the members to be thinking about how they can create a community that supports one another even beyond just a support group itself. Oftentimes we'll see that the members will share childcare responsibilities. They might offer respite for each other. They might have a particular skill that they can help out. Sometimes we'll see that someone will offer tutoring because they happen to understand the new math, or things like that, right? In terms of the help for agencies, it certainly relieves some of the burden on staff with all the many obligations that they have in terms of supporting families and getting the work done. And then finally, one of the most important pieces of having it be a peer-led group is that when families are approaching a crisis point, they're oftentimes much more willing to talk honestly about what is going on, to get some help and guidance before it becomes an actual crisis. Whereas if the groups are led by child welfare staff, we have seen in the past that families are afraid to speak up honestly because they don't know what the repercussions may be. So the other thing that we know and that Adopt US Kids saw was both the value of and the need for parent-to-parent support for foster, adoptive, and kinship parents and caregivers. We also knew that it was really clear that there needed to be some preparation for the families or the leaders that were going to be taking on that role. That first step is key because if families are not getting good support, what they are reporting to us is that that bad support is even more damaging to them, to their children, to their family as a whole than receiving no support at all. So it is our obligation, it's our responsibility to make sure that whatever we're putting out there is quality. It's folks who are trained, folks that have the right kinds of materials and resources. We also thought as we were developing the curriculum that we needed to make it both accessible and practical so that states, territories, and tribes and their partners could just pick it up and prepare cohorts of support group leaders without a huge lift on their part. And so that those support groups that were developed were fairly consistent across the country. We know that families move and travel, and it's so wonderful when they can go to a new site or a new location and find similar support and similar messages and strategies. We know, of course, that having some skill building around some of the challenging issues that can arise is going to be key. Strategies around managing difficult topics or managing difficult personalities, some activities that help people to understand both their leadership style as a leader, but also how to best work with others. And then finally, how do we help folks understand that they need to provide some space, some time, and energy around their own self-care? Because we know that if we are not filled up, we're not going to be able to give to others. So you'll see here in these photos, we've got 5 different modules. The curriculum, as we go through it, is going to have everything that you need at your fingertips. And really all you're going to need to bring to the training and then finally to your support groups that you launch are the excitement and the belief you have in the value of an expertly run peer support. So we've got 5 modules. We've got 12 hours of training. We have scripted instruction that, so that if you're not sure exactly what to say, you've got a script right in front of you. Certainly, we encourage you to make the words your own and become authentic with it. You will have all the slide decks. You will have the handouts, activities, instruction for using the activities themselves, and some tools that will be really helpful. And then we've also added a lot of links to other helpful resources as you want to grow and develop your group and your own capacity for being a leader. So what happens in module 1? In this module, we talk about what makes for a good leader. We engage participants in a leadership quadrant activity, which we're going to practice coming up next. We highlight the importance of building relationships with both the members and the rest of the community, some of your stakeholders out there. And we also emphasize the role that a leader must take in identifying community resources, because one of the things that we know that parents and caregivers come to the support group for is advice and guidance around where do I turn. We don't expect our support group leaders to have all of the information, all of the expertise on everything that could come up in a group, but we certainly know that it's helpful if you know where to point people to those expert resources. So let's get everybody involved in practicing an exercise that we have used for many years in helping people understand their leadership style and also their leadership style as it relates to working with other people. So as we're going through, you're going to see me demonstrating how this is done in a virtual world. It's a bit more complicated than doing it in person, but it's still fun. It's relatively easy. And we need to have these capacities, right? As we've seen over the last year and a half, that we've always got to be ready to pivot to a virtual world. So in this first place, I want everybody to take a look at their bar up at the top. And if you're having trouble, you're going to see that Jamie and Britt are putting some information in the chat box for you. If you look to your toolbar, if you are on your computer, you will see an annotate button. If you're on a phone, you're going to have to find your pen. What I want you to do is I want you to click on that annotate button, and I want you to click on the spot that says stamp. Okay. And where it says stamp, I want you to pick a stamp, and I want you to place that stamp along this line, this continuum that identifies whether you hesitate to state opinions, or are you a person who is eager to say what you're thinking at any given time? Very good. There's Mary. She's pretty close to one end, and look at Britt, pretty close to the other. I'm struggling here to get my stamp button to work. So if other people are struggling, I totally understand. So everybody, if you can populate that somewhere along that continuum, right? Let's see, a few people have. If you have any questions, if you're having difficulty, ask a question in the chat box and you will be able to get some help.
Looks like several people are having trouble finding where you can annotate. So you should be able to, if you go up to view options, which should be right next to where the green line is that say that you are viewing Kim Stevens' screen. There's a little thing there that says view options, and you drop that window down and you can go to annotate.
And Britt, as you're helping other folks out, I want to let you know that my mouse has disappeared on me, and I am not sure why it's doing that. So any suggestions you have for me would be helpful as well. Okay.
Well, you can move the slides forward with your arrows. So I think that will be fine going forward.
All right. Super. I'm going to give folks just a little bit more time to try to find that spot.
I see someone else's heart down here. So that we had some success.
All right. So we know this is a piece that if you're going to be doing it virtually, you are going to want to practice. Okay. And I'm doing the thing that I promised I wouldn't do, but now I think I have stopped. Okay. Let's move forward. So we're going to use the folks that have been able to stamp as your examples. Now you'll see at the top of your screen, you see cool cucumber. And at the bottom of your screen, you see eager beaver. What I'd like you to do is I would like you to take whatever stamp you used, and I would like you to push it either straight up or straight down towards eager beaver. If you are a person gets really excitable about things, ready to jump in, dive into whatever it is and just do that work. I see Britt is now both hesitant to state her opinions maybe, but also is an eager beaver. Up in the cool cucumber, those are the folks that are calm, cool, and collected. They don't let much get in the way of them feeling like everything is okay. They don't get excitable. And I see that Jamie and Mary have been able to do that. I am going to attempt to put myself in the place where I would normally be. And that's going to be right about here. Okay. So what does this all mean? How are we going to understand those quadrants? Well, before we start, I'm going to ask a couple of people to volunteer. And by volunteering, I'm going to say I'm going to volunteer. Jamie, can you tell me a little bit about what it's like to be in that quadrant that you have selected with your green check mark? Both cool, cucumber, and open to sharing your opinion. Can you tell me a little bit about your style? Ah, Jamie, you're actually an eager beaver. and eager, and also open to talking about your opinion. Can you share a little bit about what your leadership style feels like to you?
We're having all of the technical difficulties right now because Jamie can't unmute, unfortunately.
Well,
But
then, Britt,
I'll
you've been
talk.
voluntold. There you
Yeah,
go.
no, this is the nature of it, right? We're going to talk about virtual modifying for virtual spaces later. And I mean, that's why we're doing it like this. We're messing up on purpose, just so everybody knows. So I put myself down here. I'm that weird blue scribble. And I think I can sometimes be a bit of a people pleaser and like can kind of be like reading the room about like where everybody's opinions are before I say mine. But I am a little bit of a Labrador retriever about like, getting really excited about what's happening. And yeah, that's what it feels like in my head. Is that what you're going for?
That's exactly what I was going for. And so just to put everybody at ease, within the curriculum itself, you have very detailed instructions for you to be able to do this as a group practice within an in-person session, right? When you're doing this training. So let's talk a little bit more about what the different quadrants mean. Relationship master, Britt, that's where you land. And knowing you as well as I do, I would say that is absolutely who you are. The relationship master is that person who is trying to connect people and at the same time trying to make sure that they have not overstated or overstepped their own bounds. You'll see there's an architect and an analyst, there's a driver, and there's also a spontaneous motivator. Let's talk just a little bit about what that means in real time. So analysts and architects, these are the folks that are really the idea people. They want to jump into understanding. They want to get all kinds of information. They are sometimes deliberate and slow to decide. However, when they come to a decision about what the next step is to take, they have done so with a lot of information, a lot of thoughtful consideration. And also they have done so getting input from other people, not simply using what they believe, what they know. When you look at drivers, these are people that are really motivated. Those are the folks that, if you'll remember, they are in that cool cucumber, but also very open to stating their opinion. So they're all about action and direction. They want to, as opposed to the architect and the analyst, they want to give information and opinions rather than seeking them. They're really important because they're the people that can move us forward when we get stuck. The one thing that you have to watch for if you find that you are in the driver quadrant is that you don't want to overlead. You want to make sure that people have a chance to give their own input as well. We talked a little bit about Britt. I loved how you described yourself as a Labrador retriever. That was so sweet. But those relationship masters, those are the folks that are very caring, and they're the ones that really can build and sustain your community. Really important to have. If our relationship masters are too close to the hesitant side, they can sometimes hold us back, right? Because they want to make sure that everybody's okay before they go further. Even sometimes when they know the right direction to take, they're pulling back just a bit to make sure that everybody can be on board. And then spontaneous motivators, that's actually a place where I find myself now. Although when I was raising my kids, I was much more in the relationship master quadrant. Those are the folks that get very psyched about things. They can bring a lot of mission and passion to whatever you are doing. But unfortunately, and I'll own this, objectivity can be impacted, right? Sometimes my boss will tell you that I come up with an idea that seems so exciting and so wonderful, but I haven't really thought of all of the impact that that would have. Now, what you need to know about understanding the quadrants and understanding who is in the quadrants is that, quite honestly, everybody has a bit of each of these styles. And that when you are creating your support group networks, and then as leaders, when you're launching a support group, it's really helpful to both identify and engage people in each of these quadrants, because when you have the architect, the driver, the relationship master, and the motivator all in one group, you can go far, you can go where you want to get to, and you can do it in a really planful and effective way. You also want to think about, and you'll see in your Mod 1 handouts and tools, that there's also some advice for how these different types of leadership styles can interact both effectively and not so effectively with the people in their group and with the people that they are trying to motivate to be along for the ride. Also, key stakeholders you want to think about in terms of that. So that's what we're doing mostly in Mod 1, is helping people to understand that there are different leadership styles, helping people to understand that each one of those styles is valuable and useful, and helping people to understand how to use those styles. That's the majority of what's happening. In Module 2, we're starting to learn about strategies for recruiting our members, identifying our members' skills and their interests, thinking about what their talents are, but also what their needs are. And also we're thinking about finding the resources that we need, using some different tools in order to identify what the goal and the direction of each individual group is going to be. We also have a place where we help you to create an action plan. And for example, for an action plan, you'll see these two tools here. I definitely sat down with Britt and put together an action plan, not only for creating the curriculum itself, but then also for creating and launching this particular webinar. What we know is that when we have a plan in place, when we are sure of who is doing what and when that is supposed to be done, and when we know what resources are required, we're really going to get ourselves to the place that we want to be more quickly, more effectively, and we're not going to have as many missteps. When we're thinking about who are we going to recruit, and how are we going to make our support group effective, we want to think about who are the parents in our community, who are the caregivers in our community, who can our agency or our association reach out to for potential membership. And the best way to get people interested is to ask them in advance what it is that they need, how it is that we can best meet those needs, and what kinds of supports they're looking for, as well as what kinds of talents they can bring to the group. One of the things that we recommend very strongly is that these parent surveys go out to your membership both as you're launching, for existing leaders who are maybe going to be taking over a new group, someone who's already experienced, but has gotten the call from the association or the agency to say, hey, one of our leaders is stepping down. We know that you have a lot of experience. Would you consider taking over this group for us? This is a great way to let the existing members know that you're listening, that you may be a new leader, but you're very interested in knowing what they want and need. And then we also recommend that you use these surveys maybe once a year or once every 6 months, just to find out where your group is, to find out if needs have changed. Certainly when you've got a new member coming in, you're going to want to ask them as well to fill it out and find out who is coming to our group. Module 3 is where we really start talking about and diving into using facilitation skills. Things like preparing for your very first meeting as a leader, thinking about you never get a second chance for a first impression. How we want to set the stage for people to want to come back, for them to feel like, hey, this was a great use of my time and energy. I want to come to all the meetings if I can. In Module 3, we talk about some of the qualities that good facilitators have, and we also introduce some icebreakers that will help you encourage connection and deepening of relationships. They'll help folks that are a little bit quieter to become engaged right away. One of the things that we know is that when we need engagement, if we haven't gotten that engagement within the first 10 or 15 minutes, particularly for the quieter folks, we may lose them, right? So we want to address that right away. This is one of the facilitation tools that you are going to see in your toolkit or in your curriculum. We have used this particular piece, this parent bingo icebreaker for decades, really. And it's been something that has always been successful in getting people up, getting them moving around, and getting them talking to one another from the beginning. So in terms of instruction, it's very straightforward, or you can add some more complicated levels. The simple instructions are that we ask people to circulate around the room and find another person in the room who's had the experience that is outlined in the box. We would ask that person who has that experience to put the initials in that box. And then we say that the first person that gets bingo is the winner. Now, in the instructions, you are going to want to identify for people what bingo looks like. It could be a 4-corner bingo. So if that's the case, someone could initial adopted through foster care. Someone could initial has 3 or more children in their home. Someone could initial is caring for grandchildren or other relatives, and someone could initial adopted a sibling group. You also could do up and down, you could do diagonal, you could do a cross, or you could even ask for people to have a filled card. If possible, it's always nice to have some kind of a little prize for the winner. You might have an association or an agency knickknack that you give out. Certainly candy can be really helpful, handing somebody a chocolate bar might get them excited. And then you debrief with folks and you find out who they've talked to. Give every person in the room a chance to debrief a little bit. Part of the debrief is to introduce yourself. Now, if you want to bring this particular activity to kind of a higher level, you can add an instruction that when people introduce themselves, we stop the activity at the first time that somebody has hit bingo, right? So we've identified our winner. We have asked everybody to stay in their place with whoever they were talking with at that moment. Then we give them an extra minute or two to ask each other a little bit about themselves. We are then going to ask them after that minute or two to introduce each other. This is, again, a nice way to get people really paying attention, to really connect with the person that they're talking to. And it can sometimes lead to even a little bit of a buddy system that will come out of it. As you're thinking about variations for your own training, one thing that we advise is that you take a look at the grid and that you make sure that there are enough known qualities of the people who are going to be in your group that bingo is possible, right? So, kind of just thinking about who's coming to this training session. Do we have enough people that meet any one of these? If you have a small group, you can add an instruction that says any one individual can put their initial on more than one place. With a large group, I like to say that any individual can only add their initials to one of the spaces because that encourages people to be able to talk to more people, right? So, for example, if I'm a single parent and I've done foster care and I have lived experience in foster care, I can only put my initials in one of those boxes. If it's a large group, if it's a smaller group, maybe I'm going to say you can put them in more than one. Module 4. Now, in this module, we're going to dive deeper into facilitation skills. And in this module, we're also going to be talking about how to handle both difficult situations and challenging personalities. We're going to talk about establishing some group norms, and we've got some handouts in there that are examples of what group norms can look like. So as we were thinking as a team about how the best way, what was the best way for demonstrating handling difficult situations as a leader, we realized that it's really a skill that you have to both see and practice in order to really own it, right? To really own those skills. So staff together created a virtual mock support group. And we took a video of it, both for your entertainment and for ours. And so over the next few slides, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play different clips from that mock support group meeting. And I'm going to ask everybody that's on our webinar today to pay close attention to both what goes wrong and what goes right. And after each one of the clips, we're going to have a short debrief. So I want you to think as you're watching these about what's going right, what's going wrong. And on the next slide, I am going to ask you a series of questions.
Everybody, that was really great. I'm really looking forward to this meeting tonight. It sounds like the group consensus is we kind of want to talk about parenting teens and some of the challenges around parenting teens. Is anybody really comfortable kicking us off?
I am more than ready to talk about challenges parenting teens. I'm really having a rough week with my daughter, who is just not listening to anything I say and is not doing well at school and is staying out too late. And I'm kind of sick of it and don't really know what to do about any of it. So.
Oh my gosh, Mary, I have the answer for you. I don't know if you've ever heard of the TBRI, it's the Karen Purvis method. There's a book called The Connected Child. It should be your Bible, and I can tell you whatever you want to know about it because I love it.
You know, here's my story about teenagers. Teenagers, really, my story is this. They talk about nothing. They want you to listen to them. They don't listen to you. I don't know what Karen Purvis has to say about that, but boy, oh boy, I can't get beyond the fact that no matter what subject is, no matter what the subject is, you know, just the other day, my husband and I, we were trying to have a conversation at the dinner table. We were just talking about.
Oh my gosh, what were you having for dinner? It's really sunny where you are. It's really sunny there.
Yeah, we had a really great pot roast. I can send you the recipe.
Good. You should. I'm always looking for something new to make for crock pots and things.
I love pot roast as well, but I know just in the interest of time, let's kind of keep things on track and rolling here. Maybe we can catch up after the meeting if there's a little bit extra time and we could swap some recipes. Everybody.
Okay, so Britt, I'm going to ask for your help with this because I don't want to move my mouse in such a way that I mess up the screen. So I'm going to ask you these questions one at a time, participants out there in the virtual world. And as I'm asking them, I want us all to practice a tool that you may or may not have tried before while you've been in a virtual world. But this is a tool called Cascading. And so as I read each one of the questions, I'm going to pause. Each one of you is going to type your answer into the chat box, but I'm going to ask you to wait to hit enter until I tell you to hit enter. It's a great way to make space for everyone to have their own thought, their own response, their own idea before being influenced by what they see that others have written. Okay, I hope that is clear enough. So the first question, I'm going to ask you to type your answer to the question number 1, and don't hit enter until I give you some time for everybody. So what were some of the challenges that you noticed? Challenges with the support group members, sort of difficult personalities you may have noticed. So let me give you about a minute to respond to those difficult personalities and the challenges with trying to facilitate this particular support group. And Britt, no, you won't know because they haven't hit enter.
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, I'm going to give it just about another 5 seconds. I know I'm asking people to type quickly, but I Want to make sure we get to everything. Okay, can everybody hit enter right now?
Good job, everybody. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's flying fast here. Okay. You want me to respond to say what they are?
Yes, please, Britt.
Keeping people focused, talking over each other, one-upping, off topic, tones, interrupting, talking over each other, shifting topic, going off topic about dinner.
Okay, we got it. We got it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try it again. Now, same thing. We're going to cascade. What facilitation skills did you see our support group leader, Mercedes, use? Give you another few seconds, and then we'll do the cascading thing. Okay, hit enter. Britt, do we have some responses?
I was muted because of course I am, because that's how this is going. Redirect and validate, jumped in to keep things on track. She was gentle when she reminded everybody that we need to stay on topic. That's very true. Redirecting, suggest sharing recipes after the meeting, kind of gently again. She
Perfect.
qualified what we were talking about. Yeah.
And then for the final question, are there other approaches that you all can think of that Mercedes as the leader could have taken? And again, I'll give you just a few seconds. And hit enter, please.
Okay. Setting ground rules at the beginning. That's a great point. Ask people to raise hand to talk, ask very clear questions at the beginning, more specific directions at the beginning, muting other people. Yes. Restate the topic for input, jump in a little sooner.
Perfect. Wonderful. All right. Another clip.
I think let's give Mary an opportunity. Mary had said she was having some challenges. Does anyone have any like constructive things? Nathan, you've been pretty quiet over there. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
I mean, I guess maybe teens are hard. So, I'm kind of just taking it in. I can understand that would be difficult. But
Anyone have any like solutions, anything that's really worked for them or something?
Can I talk about what hasn't worked? I mean, one of the things that is just really frustrating is I have tried taking her phone away. I've tried curfews and none of it works. She comes back and takes the phone back. It doesn't matter what I say. Nothing seems to make any difference. And I'm just sort of sick of all of this effort and nothing getting better.
Well, I have a lot of ideas, Mary, about that. I mean, again, what I just do, I use that connected child book. I mean, it's like my Bible. And if you just use the stuff that Dr. Purvis talks about in that book, I mean, it made a huge difference in our life. And I think it really could for yours too.
But I've tried that. I tried it
Oh
for
yeah,
a couple of weeks.
hi, yeah, I'm in like a meeting. I'll have to call you later. Oh
You-
yeah.
Natara,
Okay, yeah.
Natara, you're unmuted.
Oh.
Could you mute yourself?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm feeling about as frustrated with this as I am about my daughter. But again, I tried so many things, Barb. I tried that. I tried it for several weeks. Nothing changed. She didn't do anything different. It doesn't work.
But did you read the whole book? I mean, because if you read the whole book and like read it twice, I mean, you should just read it twice, because the second time I read it, it was even more powerful.
I think it's really important to remember everybody's young person responds really different. All young people respond different. And Barb, I'm so glad to hear that worked really well for your household. But not, we have to just consider that every household's a little bit different, and what works for every family is a little different. How about others? Have anyone else had a lot of success?
Okay, we're going to do the same thing. Question number 1. What challenges did you notice? I'll give you a few seconds to type that in, and then we'll cascade. Can everyone hit enter? And then Britt will debrief with me.
Yes, indeed. All right. Very good job, everybody. Over talking again. No one's listening. Negativity, no or slow answers. Still interrupting, not muted, talking on the phone. One participant really needs to vent, another not participating, muting, housekeeping rules, wants help but isn't flexible. Parents who think they know it all. Strong personalities.
Awesome. And what facilitation skills did you see Mercedes use? And hit enter, please.
All right. We have redirect to positive, calming down the argument between participants, positive affirmation, letting the person know she was unmuted. She tried to include all participants. She called on Nathan, drawing participants in, redirecting, positive feedback, letting everybody know some people may not respond to what's worked for other people.
Wonderful. And how about some other approaches she could have taken? And go ahead and hit enter.
All right, muting that participant has come up a couple times. The muting Natara because she's been having some struggles. More redirection, asking the parent to talk about specific methods that were helpful, finding solutions, encouragement, narrow the question came up a couple of times. She could have given examples of what she wanted to hear, and offer her own suggestions.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. And I believe this is the last of our little videos.
Honestly, I'm just here. I was kind of told I had to come to the group, so I'm just trying to learn and absorb. I don't really know that I have anything worth contributing.
Nathan,
Sorry, what?
who do you have at home? Who are your teenagers? Do you want to tell us a little bit about them or what you like to do with them or anything?
I mean, yeah, I have teens. That's why I'm, here in the group. They're kids doing teen stuff. It's kind of challenging, I guess. But, what can you do? So,
Well, I appreciate you sharing. I know it's a little uncomfortable sometimes in your first meeting to step up and share something.
yeah. I'm not really a group person, so,
It can be a little intimidating sometimes in support groups. I'm sure, I know we've all been our first time somewhere and had that kind of uncomfortable experience of being the newbie in the group, but hopefully with a little bit more time, you feel a little bit more comfortable, and we really appreciate having you here.
sure.
I'm glad you came.
Okay, so challenges. And hit enter, please.
Y'all are awesome. So many. Doesn't want to be there. This went much better. A couple people said this part went much better. Participant required to attend and not really motivated to be there, forced to be there. He had to be drawn out, being vague, unwilling to participate, voluntold, lack of engagement, no closed-ended questions, summarize and reflect, uncomfortableness of a member, lackluster participant.
Yes. And how about facilitation skills? And enter, please.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Y'all are so engaged here. Tried to get him to share a little bit about himself. Acknowledgement was a bunch of times here that this is uncomfortable, that this may be difficult. It's not for everybody. Really beautiful validation, supportive and encouraging to participate when he's ready. She thanked him for his answers and gave him props for coming. Yeah.
And I'm going to ask this question particularly for any agencies or associations that are here, but I do want everyone to answer. If you are an organization that really encourages or even requires folks to come to groups who are feeling a bit like Nathan, are there some approaches that we could be taking to try to make that reluctant support group member less reluctant or more involved? And I'm going to give you a little bit more time for that answer because it might be more complicated. And enter, please.
Awesome. We have a lot of great answers to that. Tracy mentioned, I generally think it's not best practice to force somebody to go to a group. I think that's a perfectly valid response to that. Yeah, we can encourage and address it individually if they have specific problems. Let's see, try to find something that people have in common so that they can connect over the less threatening topic first. Tapping in into an experienced foster parent to speak, sharing a personal story, having an anonymous Dropbox for support, right? Some people just aren't comfortable in group settings. It's very true. Finding a group with people that feels like he can relate to, right? That's a great point. He was or at least from what we could tell, was the only man there that might not be as comfortable. She could have offered to meet with him after the meeting to find out more about what he values and how he could contribute. She could offer him a job that he could do during the support group.
I love it.
Yeah, lots of great suggestions here.
We have some incredible leaders in this room. It's very exciting. So of course I was wrong. There was one last. This actually is the last one.
Asking the group if anybody could share what they really enjoy or what their teen really enjoys doing or anything that they've had success doing with their teenagers, even activities. What are some like uplifting things?
I thank you for that reminder. I know I've been super frustrated today, but there was something good this week, and I appreciate you bringing me back to that my daughter was my dog was sick, and she was the one getting up and taking care of her and really being loving to her. And it's really helpful for me to remember that there are those good moments. So thank you for that.
That's so awesome. That's really awesome that she's able to step up, and it has to help you a lot too. When you have a sick dog, I know that's not fun.
We do Friday family game night and pizza night every night. I think every family should do it because it's just the best way for us to bond and connect as a family.
I'm really glad that works for your family. That's such an awesome technique, and it sounds like a ton of fun. Maybe I'll have to try that once in a while with my family if we can get together on a Friday night.
I don't know. Sometimes when I'm on these meetings, I feel like if I could only be the kind of parent Barb is, maybe things would be better. I just don't. I mean, you have answers, Barb, and I don't know. I don't have those answers. I just kind of muddle along.
Yeah, it took me a long time to get to this point.
I think it's really important to remember, and I bet you Barb would attest to this too, that there's a lot of learning and growing as your teenagers age, and you're learning your kids every day because they're learning new experiences every day. So while somebody else may have found their groove, like they had to travel that journey, and I'm sure there were a lot of pitfalls along the way, things that maybe didn't work. So Kim, has there been anything that's really worked for you?
Okay, and here we go again. What were some challenges in this particular clip? And enter, please.
All right. self-doubt of members and comparing themselves to other people. Much better session, participant with low self-esteem on her own ability, self-doubt. One woman continuing to say that the way that she does it is the way to do it. Yep. One just said Barb is that's the challenge. Yeah. And then yeah, so that's basically what we got there.
Perfect. And how about facilitation skills that were effective? And enter, please.
Moving to positivity. A lot of folks said that, of getting folks to focus on the positive. Mercedes spent time uplifting members. Oh, y'all are fast. Respond positively to fun activities. Having the group to discuss what is positive about teens, more validating and uplifting, encouraging to find what works for them. Skills or validation and redirection, and focus on something positive. Validating but correcting. I like that, Gwendolyn. That's good.
Nice, nice. And finally, some other approaches that perhaps Mercedes could have tried. And enter, please.
All right. Humor. Asking each person individually what works for them, like going around the circle. That's great. Focusing on positive statements. I feel she could have talked more about what works for one family and not working for all families. That she could have used anything except maybe start the meeting with starting the meeting with positivity. I think that that's a good suggestion. Sharing personal experiences. She could have shared her own experiences with teens.
Great stuff. So I just want to briefly talk about a couple of things that maybe you noticed, but I just want to highlight them. One, I really appreciated the fact that as the support group leader, Mercedes was using headphones, right? I feel like a lot of times we can be distracted by other noises, but with her headphones in, she was able to both keep the privacy, the confidentiality of the other people in the group and stay focused. And one of the pieces that you'll see when we go into some of the facilitation, when you are in the actual curriculum, is that we talk about certain ground rules when we are in a video or a virtual room, right? I'm sorry, not a video, but a virtual room or Zoom support group meeting. Things like if there are children in the home, we ask the support group members to keep headphones on so the kids aren't hearing what's being said. Things like if there are, if there's distractions in behind, what can we do to not have those distractions? One of the tools that you will see in the curriculum is actually a strategy that we often use with support groups to make sure that everybody has a chance. And with that, the opening of the support group meeting is to, first of all, welcome everybody, maybe ask everybody for some kind of a positive message in the chat box to start the meeting off, but then using a logbook to go around and ask each person who has joined the meeting, what is a question or a topic that you want to talk about today? And then jumping from hard topics to easier topics to sort of mix it up. The other nice thing about that logbook piece, and you could use that both virtually and in person, is it helps you to keep track of trends in your group, helps you to keep track if there is not just a trend for the group in general, but also maybe somebody like Mary who was really struggling and having a hard time seeing the positive. If you're seeing that that's happening meeting after meeting, you might want to take some time to meet with her individually. The same with Nathan, right? Several people talked about ways to try to engage Nathan, either finding maybe a buddy for him to have at the group as well, another man, to get a man's perspective, or meeting with him outside of the group. You know, you said you're not really a group person, but as a support leader, how can I help you? So many different things that you're going to find in that 4th module. And then we go into module 5. And this is such an important piece. And I think sometimes we forget about it. You know, we get the group up, we finally establish the group, we've got our members, we're having our meetings. But one thing that we have to think about is, how do we keep that group sustained over time? How do we reassess needs periodically? How do we identify and support and elevate emerging leaders, right? We know that many of the best support groups that we've seen in the past fall apart when a leader has either retired or has moved on, or maybe their children have grown. And so being a support group leader is not a priority for them anymore. So we always want to think about, how do we keep this going? And finally, we need to know that as leaders, it's very, very important to take care of ourselves in all of this. You know, we always learn about how you can't pour from an empty cup. So part of the curriculum is to encourage folks to think about that. And then we also end the series in this particular module with some opportunities for the participants to practice facilitating the group and to get some feedback from their colleagues. So this is one of the tools that we include in there for this particular module in terms of sustaining the group. And with this one, the self-care activities for your group, it's both sustaining the group leader, sustaining the group as a whole, but sustaining as well the individual members by, you know, different activities and tools that we have to keep them feeling like this group is helping me to keep on track. This group is helping me to take care of myself. One of the things that we have heard from members over time around this idea of self-care is that it can be triggering. It can feel like one more thing I'm supposed to do in the midst of everything else that I have to do. So some of the on-the-spot ideas are things that you can do within the meeting itself without adding that extra burden of, please find time to go to the spa, find time to take that mile walk, right? Find time to read a book. A lot of our folks don't necessarily have that opportunity, but some of these quick on-the-spot ideas are things that you can do right in the meeting itself. And then some of the ongoing exercises are things that you can incorporate into your meetings time by time. I know that many of us feel like we have to kind of be vigilant about that, check in for ourselves and check in for others, or else we find that we're running on empty, and trying to refill that cup can be so much more difficult when we are running on empty. The other thing that we find is that if you are writing down some of this stuff, if you're making it an actual document, it reminds you to do it every day. I know as we were starting today, Britt was talking about muting her phone because she has a reminder it's time to have another 8 ounces of water, or otherwise she finds at the end of the day that she's dehydrated. Super excited about that idea. I'm going to start it myself. I have the same difficulty. So I think at this point in time, Britt, I turn this over to you to talk about how AdoptUSKids can help folks.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Kim. So as I said, this has just been a little taste to give you guys kind of a little bit of an experience in a virtual setting with the curriculum. And we have a couple of different suggestions if you are thinking about implementing the curriculum. And we also want to encourage you to reach out to me. My contact info is at the end of these slides. So please do reach out to me if you are wondering about how AdoptUSKids could potentially help you in implementing the curriculum. Okay, so we first of all recommend that you use experienced trainers. That may go without saying, but this is kind of a really unique group, I think, when you're talking about training parent group leaders, right? It's really important that anybody who's offering this training, I think, has experience as a trainer, but also experience in the support group setting as well. So that may be a little bit more challenging to make sure that you're finding the right person to lead the training is really going to help people get the most out of it that they can. We really wouldn't want this to be done by someone with no support group experience or no foster care and adoption experience or something like that, just because it really, it really is important. As I mentioned at the beginning, that Kim has lived experience with this, and that just lends itself to her being the right person to talk about these things. And so we're just kind of encouraging you to kind of think about that. We also encourage you to prepare it ahead of time. We mentioned that it's 12 hours of training. And so and each module has suggestions at the beginning for what specific parts of it to look over really thoroughly ahead of time. But really, you probably do want to be looking over the entire thing before you even think about starting it, just because they all build upon each other as modules do in a curriculum. So, there's definitely there's activities and handouts. There's also homework that folks are going to do between one module and the next. So in order to do that properly, you really want to prepare ahead of time and see what kind of materials you need and that type of thing. We also really encourage you to think about who your parent group leaders are, right? Kim mentioned earlier that having foster adoptive kinship parents themselves lead these groups is really advisable, but we also know that that's not necessarily feasible and not necessarily how all agencies are set up. So if you have, like, for example, therapists doing your support groups or frontline staff doing your support groups, think about who those folks are that are going to be participating in the training, because you may want to, pay specific attention to making sure that they have, like, if you don't have peer-led support, if the folks that are in your that are leading groups are not experienced foster adoptive kinship parents, you may really want to supplement the curriculum with some additional information about what parents are experiencing, right? What their major challenges are, just to kind of help buoy them into a level of understanding. You also may want to consider a co-facilitation model, right? If you have like a really experienced trainer, but who doesn't have foster adoptive kinship parent experience, or who doesn't have support group experience, maybe they can pair with somebody who does, and then you kind of get the best of both worlds there. Co-facilitation models tend to work really, really well for training and for support groups themselves. That's definitely something to consider. We also advise not doing more than 2 modules at one time. Each module is between an hour and a half and 2 hours. And that's already pretty long when you're talking about adult learning. And they do have breaks built in into the script themselves, but it might even be advisable to just do one at a time, because it is really important to kind of let people walk away from the experience without feeling overheated. Everybody, we all have been to those trainings that were like, that was maybe a half hour too long, or that was a bit too much, and the last bit is gone now. I'm fried and I'm not taking in any more information. So in order for it to work best, you might want to do it one at a time. Perhaps you could do 2 modules in one day, but we wouldn't push it past that. Also, we are all, at least for the time being anyway, still kind of in virtual spaces. Maybe not, maybe some of us are back in person, but there are obviously considerations to make if you are going to potentially be implementing this curriculum in any sort of virtual way. You saw us try and kind of fail to do the annotation piece on the leadership quadrant activity. That is one way that you could try to do that. I promise we practiced ahead of time, but apparently not too much, not enough. But you also, like, that was why we recorded the video ahead of time of that kind of mock support group. That is a way to kind of have people experience the same kind of like role play activity that you would be doing in the in-person setting, but kind of modify it for virtual learning. And again, if you have any questions about how exactly your agency could use this, please reach out, because that is part of what AdoptUSKids does as part of capacity building services. So with that, let's move into questions. If anybody had any questions, I didn't see a ton coming through. As I think that it's a lot to take in, certainly. And so I would love to hear what other folks are doing to provide training and support to support group leaders now. I would love to hear what other folks are doing right now. So if you wouldn't mind putting that in chat about what your training experience was like potentially as a current or a new group leader, or what your agency does to support group leaders. What kind of things do you do? Awesome. So Kim is saying one option that works quite well and better than Zoom Annotate is Jamboard. That's true. We probably should have used Jamboard from Google. It's definitely more interactive than what we had tried to do there. That's definitely something to look into if you're thinking about modifying for virtual. And Jennifer mentioned that she started using webinars offered by AdoptUSKids. That's great. We like that. That's great.
The other thing that I want to advise folks to do as well is please do look at all of the resources that AdoptUSKids has in terms of some of the topics that will come up. Things like how do you handle trauma? How do we help families understand trauma? How do we understand how to talk about transracial adoption, race, building a positive identity? How do you learn about local resources? There's just so much great stuff in there for you in terms of having good content for your families so that when they come with questions, you are armed with some answers.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that is probably something that I should mention here about the curriculum. The curriculum itself talks about the importance of leaders being knowledgeable about about trauma, about the experiences of foster adoptive kinship families, being adoption competent, about the importance of knowing about the resources available in your community. It talks about the importance of that. But of course, because every community is different, the curriculum itself doesn't address like, okay, here is how to facilitate a discussion about transracial adoption, right? So that is a great point, that this would, the curriculum helps with facilitation skills, and it helps you learn all of these things on how to navigate being a support group leader, but there's still going to be things that you need to make sure that your leaders know and understand. And going to AdoptUSKids is a great way to look at that. We have several resources on that, as does North American Council on Adoptable Children. And I see that Serena has said we are working more towards having a topic for each session. Love that. And letting people know the topic prior so that the conversation is more productive. I love that. Kind of giving folks a minute, because that's a really great point when you're kind of coming to a support group blind and not necessarily knowing about the topic. A lot of folks need more time to process their thoughts around a topic, or just might feel like Kim did in the mock support group that we did, of just like, well, I don't know as much as this person over here. I'm going to stay quiet. This is not my area. When really they might have had some really great things to great input to give, right? Gwendolyn said that we have offered leadership training sessions for our support group leaders. That's awesome. And then making sure we follow up with them often to see if they need extra help or guidance. Love that. Love to see that kind of support provided. So you're welcome to ask more questions. We did a lot of topic-based stuff. That's great to hear. And Mary put in the chat just now that we do have a specific discussion guides for parent group leaders, and you can find them at the link that Mary just put in the chat. And we're always developing more resources for parent group leaders. Definitely take a look at the professional's website. And so with that, Kim, would you move us forward a little bit here? So this is my contact info. I see that Serena has a question. So the virtual groups that have posed a challenge for people being very distracted in their homes and walking around. I think you're not alone, Serena. Kim, do you have any? So first of all, AdoptUSKids actually has a webinar on facilitating virtual support groups. I will put that in the chat. Kim, do you want to talk a little bit about the kind of ways that you know to help with kind of facilitating virtual support?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is just to come up with group norms that everybody agrees to in the beginning. And I would say that all of us have had that experience of whether we were doing training or we were doing a support group. When we all first started going on these virtual platforms, we didn't really I don't think we really anticipated all the things that we needed to talk about, right? Things like, please wear a shirt. Things like, please, have background noise turned down. Please don't be walking around. Please, all of the different things. And one of the pieces that we do have in both the webinar on how to run a virtual support group, but also in this curriculum are some sample group norms that you can come to agreement on. One of the folks that I know that does support groups all the time makes it her practice to speak with any new member before they actually come to the group, just to make sure that they understand what those group norms are and sort of suss out any important information that she might need to know as a leader. So there's a lot of great ways. And I think that AdoptUSKids has so many resources up there for you to understand how to make it start right from the beginning.
Fantastic. Great. Yeah. So definitely check out that webinar. And as Kim mentioned, that is a topic that's addressed in the curriculum as well. So please reach out to me. This is my contact info here. If you're thinking about using the curriculum, if you're not sure how to advocate for its use or whatever, reach out. Let's have a conversation about it. That's great. Kim, if you would move us forward here. And again, everybody is going to get a copy of these slides. So don't feel like you have to scribble all of these things down, but this is where you can find the curriculum itself. It's ready to use out of the box right now for free. Move us forward a little bit, Kim, please. So these are the discussion guides that are currently available that Mary put in the chat. We have several more coming down the pike. Definitely, check those out, but know that it's not the end and not all of them, right? We also have tip sheets and articles for support group leaders. Here are some samples of those. Move forward. Thank you, Kim. And some recorded webinars, for example, the Facilitating Virtual Support Groups. Another great one that we had in September was on helping parents embrace trauma responsive parenting strategies. Because again, talking about how important it is for support group leaders to kind of have the knowledge and the skills to help parents kind of get over those humps, those challenges associated with what it means to parent children who've experienced trauma. So that was a really a great webinar. And then the best place to find all of the parent group resources is there. That will pull up everything that is tagged for parent groups on our website. So with that, please feel free to reach out to me. We're finished a little bit early, but unless anybody has any questions, I think we can give you guys the gift of 14 minutes back of your day. So with that, I hope everybody has a great rest of your day and take care. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, everyone.